And I do agree, like having a network of people is where it's at. Because in my experience, like even coming to you, like when I came to you, it was exactly what I needed at that time, because I did have those Ayurveda practices and things that I was already incorporating, that spoke the language that I was able to understand at the time. But when I came to you, it was like the dots started connecting in a whole different way. And I'm like, oh, you know. And so I do understand that, you know, the network can rotate around, you know. I mean, sometimes you're with this practitioner and sometimes it depends on your seasons.
Yeah, and that I think if we can keep our ego out of our work that we're called to do, we see the value in a team of people, you know.
Are you looking for answers, searching for natural ways to support your body, or frustrated with mainstream solutions? So are we. Welcome to the Renewed Hope Wellness Podcast, where we're on a search for answers. We're going off the beaten path and diving into natural solutions to health and wellness issues. Our goal, empower you to be your own health advocate. So let's get started.
Being able to say, what do you have to offer that, like you, that, you know, or as you visited with me, it's like you brought so much of your own story to the table that it lets me pause and think, oh wow, this is connecting on my side too. So I think as women, you do need a tribe. You need people that can say, I don't claim to do everything. I don't think one person should be the sole provider of anyone's care, because I think it limits you to that lens. So tell me a little bit about your experience with Ayurvedic. That's my country version of saying that.
That's perfect.
But, you know, I am familiar enough with that, just over things as I've touched on different learning modalities, but you have recently been certified in that. And I'm super excited because I think you're going to offer so much for people. And you have such a sweet spirit that it's just contagious. And so I think people need just that with you, if nothing else. But I just wanted you to share, what is Ayurvedic and what does that weird word mean? And how does it fit into a holistic approach to health, which is what we should all be about.
So. Yeah. So do we have 30 minutes or 30 years? Because I could really get into it. But
we're going to start with 30 minutes, but I'm hoping for a whole series.
So. Thank you. I really am excited to talk with you about Ayurveda, because for one, it is a weird word. It is, especially in our area, and I love talking with people about how it can become part of their lives. It's a lot easier than people think, and so yeah, Ayurveda came into my world when I was in massage school for the first time, actually. It was just a word that we explored for just a little bit, piece in massage school for maybe 2 days, and I was like, oh, that sounds really cool. And then the crumbs were just put there throughout the next 3 or 4 years. Later in yoga teacher training, and then once I became a yoga instructor, it was like the more people I was talking to, it was becoming more of like, this is not just a like movement. You know, yoga wasn't just about the physical poses or how fast you could move or how zen you can get. It was a whole nother language, and I'm like, oh wow, it's not just about that. Mm-hmm. And so then I ended up in the emergency room. Left turn, found out that I had gallstones, and realized that I didn't want to go the route of removal at that point. Mm-hmm. That was the only option that was given to me, and at that point in my life, I just could feel that was not my answer, and so there it began. I had no resources, especially in our area, and so I'm scouring the internet. I'm ordering all the books and, you know, traveling everywhere between Atlanta and Asheville to try and find somebody that speaks that language, because I was already really interwoven in the yoga. And essentially that's how I describe it to people, is that Ayurveda is the sister science to yoga. Where a lot of us imagine yoga as just the movement, just the stillness. Ayurveda is the language that speaks to the mind, the body, and even the spirit. And that scares people. As soon as I say the spiritual wellness, they're like, oh yeah, no. Yeah. And we'll get to that later, but that was the full connection that I was looking for at that time. And so I began going to Waynesville, and I would go every 3 weeks, and I was receiving body work, Ayurvedic body work. Now, she was a practitioner, and her wealth of knowledge was just, it was exactly what I needed in that Ayurvedic world, and she gave me some wonderful resources to get started with, some very basic recipes and things to start looking into my nourishment. And this is coming from a body work, a body worker, massage therapist. And I'm like, wow, that's what I could really connect with at that point, because although I had gone through all these different phases in my life, or I guess for the leading up to those 6 years of healing, nutrition was kind of like,
It can't have anything to do with it, right?
These Red Bulls are totally good for me. They're so fun, and I love Coke. And yeah, all the fried foods, I'm like, it has nothing to do with it. It can't, right? And as soon as I began implementing these things, it was very apparent that that was where this like golden opportunity was for me. And so that was the real journey. And so then I continued with my services with her. I came and spoke with you and started connecting all these dots. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this isn't this crazy context that you have to like dedicate your whole life to. It is a practice that is very tangible. It's an ecosystem that moves and breathes, and it changes. It does with our ages, and what we have going on with us environmentally, internally, traumatically, just all of the things. So it was love at first sight for me. Just took me a little while to get in there, but that is how it began with me. That is the beginning of it. And after I got on a plateau with my health, I was a little hungry at that point, and I'm like, okay, now that I'm good and that I understand this and I'm really embodying this, how can I tell more people about it? Because although I was sharing this information with my clients and anybody who would hear me, it was like, there is a system to it. And to me, it is a healthcare system all on its own. It is, although it is very broad and every body is so intricately made, the system itself is simple. We are the intricate, complicated ones, but when we bring the system in, we realize that, wow, and I get a little nerdy about things, and so I just dove straight into all of the things that were matching with me in Ayurveda. And then I'm noticing that, okay, there are patterns and technicalities, and there's a real system to this. So then when I decided to go to school, that was a whole nother, like, oh my gosh, like, if you say the words Ayurveda to people, I'm an Ayurvedic practitioner or health coach, you're like, I don't know about that. Even the people that it does interest, you're like, tell them it's, sister science to yoga, and they're like, okay, that's interesting to me. Most of the information that's out there, it's thick. It's heavy context. And so I'm like, how can I learn best, digestible information and be able to give that back? So there again, I start looking at how I can gain an education in that. So I found a wonderful gal, the Shakti school, and she's Southern, and that's what made it feel like home to me. I'm like, when she would give me my lessons, I'm like, she understands it, she gets it, because environmentally, it has a lot to do with your wellness.
Absolutely.
So this healthcare system, although it is 5,000 plus years old, there's some relevance today. And I feel like my job, my purpose is to translate and to bring this ancient text into the modern ways of living, because, you know, let's face it, like when you try to read about some of these things, it gets a little heavy, and it's my love language, and so I don't mind. So, you know, and the way my brain works, it's a Vata brain, by the way, that's a Ayurvedic term. When I understood that part of myself, I realized that I'm a channel of learning, but I have to be passionate about it. And so I realized this was my love language, and then I was passionately drawn into this, and so I've been absorbing ever since. And so
and that it's beautiful too, because I think whatever path we're on in life learning, it's like there may just be small things that are touched on in moments of like introducing this, you know, as you were to Ayurveda, and you just know in your spirit, you're like, that I'm interested in that. And I think that's part of what we're not very good at anymore as humans, because so many things tell us what, if we're tracking apps, as we talked about a minute ago, things that, you know, we've got things to tell us how well we slept, the quality of our sleep, what our heart rate value is, like all of this. It's just like, I think we've lost touch with just listening, like you were drawn so many years ago to, that's interesting to me, and then it builds and you see it sprinkled throughout because you were listening. And that was the same with me when I was called to do what I do. It's like what spoke to me, and it was food is medicine. And if, as much as that is beautiful, we are not just a body. We have to address every area of our life, which is body, mind, and spirit, and being able to listen to what our bodies are telling us, because honestly, doing this for years, what I have learned is that if we go back in someone's health story, the body's been talking to them for a long time. And something that I share with clients is there's nothing wrong in your system that's out of balance that your body wasn't already trying to speak to you about in a whisper at some point. But we're not really good at listening to whispers unless we are disconnected from all of the technology and the apps, and the movement of life is so fast that it takes a pain point, your gallbladder, you know, the anxiety in my life, like it's because the body will just keep speaking. It's like, hey, I don't have what I need here, there's something's not coming through. And it's sad that it has to yell at us before we say, oh, maybe this person does have to have boundaries or have to have nourishment that we weren't thinking about before. And I think it's just part of, we're living in a world that we've never been designed to live in. So we're inside more than we're outside. The nature of our lives is taking us to a place that I think people are getting sick earlier in life because we have lost the place of connection from going outside and feeling the sun on our skin and realizing, hey, that activates 200 different gene expressions with vitamin D alone. And we're so complicated, and yet it's so simple. Right. You know, it's like, step outside, you know. And sometimes I feel like in practice, so much of what I do is say, go outside. Go outside for
fresh air ritual, like it's out, you know.
And our grandmothers, you know, you don't look good, go outside and play. Okay, she probably didn't understand or take the time in the busyness of all of her beautiful life to go, why does that help? But it did, and I think that we have to get back to a 5,000-year-old, healthcare system, or something that's saying to us, we do not live in one sphere. Everything that we have is connected to those areas of our life. And if any of that is broken, physiology is affected because we can't separate out the fact that we have a spirit, a mind, and a body. They're all together one, and which to me is beautiful in my faith, because that's part of the mystery of the Lord and how He moves in our lives. But I think if we, so many times, I think the body's saying, I really don't want to yell at you. I truly don't want you to have to hear this way. But it's those pain points that tell us how serious someone is. Just like that led you on a 6-year journey, that leads most of us to get our gallbladder removed because, hey, it's too complicated and it's scary and we're not given options. And everyone has their own path. I had my gallbladder out years ago because I didn't really know there was another way. And so being able to just know that you can reconnect and that the body's never fully broken. I think that the healing story is beautiful in every person's life. And I get to be on that side of it where I'm watching people and they'll often say, you helped me so much. And I'm like, no, you helped you so much, because we can have wonderful information. You can share the most beautiful truths in literally this healthcare system. But it takes putting legs to that and implementing it in your life, because there's nothing worse than a practitioner who doesn't live by what they believe. And I think that goes across the board in anything. That, do you really believe it? Is it part of your life? You know, do you really think that that's how people live? And I think one of the most powerful questions asked to me was actually by a business mentor. And he said to me, we were talking about, all the things you talk about when you're trying to reach people and grow. And he said, do you really believe that the foundation of health is what you're telling me? And he just stopped me, because I think I was convincing him. And I said, 100%, I'm passionate about this. And he said, I know. He said, then just live that. Because people will see that you really do stand behind that. And so I think knowing, when he asked me that question, do you really believe that food is the most powerful medicine in the world? I do, and so not to hijack the conversation, because I want you to share that, but I think, often with the term Ayurvedic or holistic healing, it's not common because it's on the move, and I think we see that more and more as people are searching for other answers besides just allopathic care, because that's a box that has some great, it has some great help in it, but it is just one box, and I like a bigger box. I think that you needed a bigger box for your gallbladder, and so we can offer that to people in different modalities or healthcare systems. It's beautiful, so.
I love all of that, because that's really what has, all of it, yes, true, but the disconnection, that was where it began for me, when I noticed that I was turning my head to nutrition.
The Red Bull was there. No, just
exactly. I couldn't even see the signs that were there, because we're disconnected, we're distracted, and we're trying to find a quick fix because we have a lot going on. Women have a lot going on. Men do too, but women, 2026, we have a lot to navigate. And again, this healthcare system, the reason I chose the school that I ultimately went to was it was the Shakti school, and what Shakti means is the feminine embodiment. And I needed that. I didn't need a system that was shutting down pieces that I really needed to explore, nutrition being one of those. And the way that Ayurveda sees nutrition is it's a living, breathing, changing ecosystem. When I started, and it's not this 15 ingredient list of 6 hours worth of cooking all the time. Very similarly to your meal plans and the way that you put the holistic scale out there for nutrition, it's a lot of taking away the crap that's out there. The stuff, the poison, the beginning of a lot of these diseases and illnesses. And so for me, Ayurveda was showing me, giving me food that could heal me, because I'm taking away the exact poison that I have been putting into my body year after year, meal after meal, and simply choosing different foods was already getting me ahead, right? It was taking away the Zaxby's fries 3 days out of the week for lunch. And it was taking away all of the other things, the high fructose corn syrup, right? You start looking at ingredients and you realize, oh my gosh, like, it's not just this intricate, in-depth healthcare system. It is tangible things that we can all do, and it does. It takes a woman, a person, willing to embody that. And I'm a cheerleader for people, because I really do believe it's a lot easier than, we get in our heads and we're like, oh my gosh, I don't have the time to do this. I don't have the means. I don't have the understanding. And it's a lot easier, and I know you can concur, a lot of people get very overwhelmed because they think it's like a big life change. And ultimately it is, but it's a gradual life change, right? Because what you're working with people in Ayurveda, through the Ayurvedic lens, you have 3 phases of life. You have the beginning, the middle, and the end, right? And they all embody different aspects to take into consideration. The same as far as your imbalances or your illnesses or diseases. They all embody different aspects. It just depends, and that was the beautiful part of what drew me in. I'm like, this could work for everybody. Everybody's got something to work on at this point. And, even talking with you more and listening to your podcast and realizing the mineral deficiency and depletion, and bringing that to my awareness and thinking, oh, this Ayurvedic text was written 5,000 years ago. They didn't have a lot of these things that we have to worry. How can I modernize this? These things that are written in the way of life can still be implemented, on top of removing the poisons, right? It's like we have a little bit more of a job to do here, but we can implement this system, because ultimately what it is it is a beautiful, in my heart, a beautiful system that is artistic and poetic and beautiful, and that's the language that calls me into. Everything is connected through the elements, and so I can speak that language. I'm drawn in. I'm like, okay, help me understand. So personally, how this was tangible for me was that learning through you that the gallbladder was connected to this, that, and that. I'm like, oh, that's fire. An elemental, when you think of an elemental idea of fire, like, how does that react in the body? That's inflammation, that's acid reflux, that's your flare of IBS. That's all these things. And so that's just a small little lens of how learning modern things like soil depletion and, looking at labs and knowing, you did such a service for me, for offering me the information that you did, because I didn't have a source to give me the information that you were giving me to link it to the ancient 5,000-year-old text. I'm like, oh, fire. Oh, there's fire. I get it. And it was
and seeing that on the lab where it's an inflammation marker, you're like, okay, fire.
But yes, exactly. And so learning all of this, I'm like, okay. And then you start looking at a lot of these diseases and illnesses are mineral depletion, right? How do you heal that with food? And then our food is already depleted even more of this. And so it's just, it's all interwoven, all connected. And Ayurveda was just a very poetic and beautiful embodiment of that.
Well, it was beautiful to hear you share it. And I see the passion. I recognize the passion, because I just think, so, and that's, I think, never lose that. Because sometimes in helping others, we can forget that that applies to us too, and that we have to keep those things in place. But I think it's beautiful that so many times people are like this. And I think that it's hard because it's not normal. It's common to have junk everywhere to eat and mentally depleted food, but it's not normal. And so I was in a class one time, and I respect that teacher a lot, and he made the statement. He said, what has worked forever? Go back to that. And I think that seems so simple, but you start thinking, what did we eat 100 years ago? What things were we not having to have a choice of that we now are just, we live in a country of abundance and we're starving to death. I mean, that's been my mantra the whole time, because if you have a label that says there's this much nutritional value, that's relevant to the soil it's grown in, to the way that it was taken care of from start to finish, and how long it takes you to get it to. I mean, there's so many factors, and yet these bodies can take something that has very little value and still do something beautiful with it, because the system is perfect. It's just that we keep putting things in that is definitely junk. And so, you know, we wouldn't, I think sometimes car analogies seem to relate most of the time, especially to my guidelines. But my husband helps me with that. But, you know, if you had a Porsche, you're probably not going to just go get gas at a station where you know that maybe they've had stuff coming through before. I mean, you're more mindful because you're like, this engine runs perfectly. I would never do that to this complex vehicle. But we do it every day in how we choose food, because we just really think it's irrelevant. And I don't think it's hard. To me, it's much harder to be sick than it is to make good choices with your food. And I think if you choose your hard things, and yeah, I'm not going to go in the grocery store and be able to shop all of these different places and not be overwhelmed if I'm there to buy junk. There's too many choices. But if I narrow it down to food that literally is completely whole, I just took the whole problem out that in 5 minutes. It's like, shop the outer circle. We hear that.
Yes.
But it's like, yeah, or shop the farmer's market if you can know your farmer, which, is a different conversation. But I think just knowing that it's really simple. We have a complex system that can move very simply through life if we stop complicating it. And I think we're really good at that.
Oh my God.
I'm really good at complicating
Yes.
it. And, decision making, everything. I'm like, oh no, you have to think about every part of it. And I think sometimes our bodies just think, just be. Could you just be? And it's like, what does that even mean? How do you know your place and stay in that space and not fight and feel like you've got to do all these things? And yeah, we're super busy. Any sickest nation in the world. So it's like we have to stop and think, it's not working anymore. So how do we go back to what worked for 5,000 years?
Yep.
And I think that's where just introducing people that there are other options to other healthcare systems. The medical system has a lot to offer in things that I could not help anyone with.
Sure.
But on the other side of that, if that person is able to step outside of that and say, what else is there? What other options are there? Maybe you don't have another option for me, but don't limit yourself to one person's options. And I think that just having the freedom to listen to what we're supposed to do and get back to living like people lived 100 years ago as best that we can. That we go outside, that we try to rest and create spaces in our mind to heal. I think it's something that I love to tell people, and I feel like it's so true. Is that if the body creates it, it can heal it. But the minerals and the nutrients and all these things that we can as people overcomplicate, but I just go back and say what worked forever. And I think this is exciting that I think people are going to be able to connect on that together in this community we can know that, hey, this is how you saw that. Just like for me, it's like, let's look at your lab. Let's get some black and white numbers to see how bad is it. What are your
Yeah.
and then know that that is a moment in time number. It represented a value in one moment in your life. It doesn't write short. And then connecting it for what resonates with people. And for you, that was inflammation is fire. That makes total sense to me. So I'm like, thank you, Whitney.
Well, think about the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system is water. It's a water element. So you understand, you can see the connection.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And making it not weird. I think we're so closed sometimes. I'm an Appalachian girl and I'm very proud of that. I always will be. But I think some of it is that we can also be very laser focused on what we think you can do to be better, and like these no boundaries in places, and then also like no.
Yeah.
But knowing that a lot of these concepts that, often we think, oh no, I'm not gonna do yoga, I'm not gonna do this, that's gonna get into, and it's like, well, maybe there's an element of some of that would actually be helpful if we don't close ourselves off to it. And it's not yoga for everyone, and it's not what I do for everyone. It's just, I think, being open to know, okay, does this check out with me? Do I identify with this or no? Is that not? Because I do think there's so many healing modalities and they're different, and that's okay. Having Dr. Kinsey on recently talking about pelvic floor health and structural things helps you think about the body as a unit, as a structure that works in all these places. But she holds a different space than I do, and we work great together because I think you have the option to say we're more complicated, and we do sometimes have to have more than one answer, and that it can all end up being a very healing experience for people.
And it's a journey,
Yeah.
and it's like you say, like it didn't just come overnight. A disease and illness steadily come in. And so the process to that for me was important to watch the undoing, because choice after choice, unconsciously or not, I was the one, in my case, contributing to my disease. And so embodying these practices, like you say, like I loved the car analogy because that's just, it's a perfect way to describe it, because I remember one specific time I had gone to this retreat and I felt like a Porsche when I left. I was like, maybe a Jaguar, I don't know, like I was fancy that day because like I was able to come back to myself and move away from the distractions. And after that, like you say, we don't have as many opportunities as we used to be able to really hear ourselves and listen to those small little whispers before they're screaming at us and before they're 5 things instead of 2 things, or just a little fire and not a volcano, and the body does speak to us. And to me, I love the car analogy because to me, like the way we talk to ourselves, that voice in our head, that's that spiritual essence. Like when you look at yourself as you're a body, right? And we have movement and we have to move our body. If we do not move, we will not survive very long, or your quality of life will not be very joyous. We have this body, we have to take care of it, right? Food, movement. And then we have this piece of us that we have to sit with, and we have to show discernment, and we have to understand that language. And it takes that slowing down, which a lot of us don't have, and we don't have the time for. Exactly. And that was a big practice of it. It wasn't the woo crazy stuff. It wasn't the this way or the that way. It wasn't a name of anything. It was the practices that I was trying to embody myself were nourishing different parts of myself that I was not given the tools or the knowledge even existed. That definitely contributed to parts of my disease and my illnesses, and that ties into more than just the physical body. So many times my yoga students have said, I've heard it so many times where, what brought me into yoga classes was I was looking to be more flexible or lose some weight or whatever, but what keeps them there, that's bigger. You know, and what brings them there, because it's not just about this goal of A, B, C, or D. It's the journey that it takes you on, because it's not these strict instructions. It's this guidance that says, okay, well, if this is what's showing up with you, how about you try this? Because this is the way that this is connecting. Yeah. And so it's a beautiful way, the way that everything is connected, and when you can get on that journey and show up for yourself in that voice of you're a cheerleader, right? Like, we can't be mad for too long, right? I mean, we can go through our moments, but we can't get too mad at our knees or our bellies or our gallbladders or our traps or whatever. We have to show discernment. We have to show love to ourselves. And that was the whole other piece that I was not getting. I was not devoted to my healing. I was not devoted to the practice in ways that needed my attention. It was those hard decisions where, you know, I'm devoted to know this, that, or the other. So going out to eat with friends at these restaurants, that changed. And that became very hard, you know, and choosing not to even do alcohol. You know, I was devoting myself in certain ways, and then you start realizing your environments change and your social atmospheres change. And those are the small practices that, like what you're talking about, it's not these harsh restraints, it's more of these things you implement, and then you're like, this feels good, this is a no-brainer, this is not chores anymore, it's maintenance for my engine, right? Like this feels good to my Porsche. I'm about to have this Porsche for a long time. And that's just where it became, you know, it just, when I started speaking to myself and looking at myself, like, this is the only car I've got. So how many times am I gonna
Have a service.
Exactly. Every 3 weeks for a little while, you know.
Yeah. But it's amazing how quickly the body can heal. And I think just in that what was it, 6 years coming up to that, and then you see this process of how long did it take to get there before it had to yell, hey, help me out here. And I always think, you know, we do not develop health issues in a day, and we're not going to get out of them in a day. But it's amazing to me how forgiving our bodies are, because we're created so wonderfully and fearfully made. Every day I know that more and more when I just see what people can do in their health and what God can do, honestly. Because I think no matter where people are going to draw the line for them and say, well, that's not part of my issue, we are powered by a spirit within us. And
We have an essence
within
us.
And just let it be gone, and then the body doesn't move. So, you know, you have to say, I have to address every area of my life, my stress, the community that I keep, just like all of those things, you know, removing that changed some dynamics. That was probably balancing and healthy, and so it hurts, you know, because we're used to standing on one
Your
leg.
comfort.
Yeah,
It's
like
comfort.
this is my ritual.
Yes.
This is my habit. This is what I do. But where did it get you? Because the definition of insanity is keep doing it. You know, just keep doing it and hoping that it's going to change. And I think eventually the day comes when the body says, I'm not going to be able to do that for you anymore like this. But if you were to change these things, we would make a great team. You know, and you have that really opportunity. And I think that's the main thing, Whitney, and we're supposed to be 30 minutes, and I have a feeling that Cassie's like, no, you totally aren't, but she's like, we're good. So Cassie's doing all our filming, if anybody thinks I have an imaginary friend. But, you know, it's just, I love having conversations that hopefully will make people think, if they're in a situation where they just feel stuck, and like, I have this one choice, and that's the way it has to be, never stay there, because there's always more that our bodies can do than what we've been told. And the beauty of that is if we will stop long enough to listen, analog our lives again, where we're unplugged from all the things that are supposed to tell us all the stuff that we need to know. I think I love
Such a trick.
Yeah,
It's such a trick.
I don't know if it's like an experiment with myself. I took this ring, the Oura ring, off for probably 2 years. And I put it back on because I thought, I wonder how much has changed about my stress and how I manage and all these things. And it's hilarious because sometimes I will sleep, like I will get up and be like, that was some really good sleep. And then I'll
Your
get
chart
my
says
app, and it's like, wow, you missed this in your HRV. And then I'm like, oh wow, I don't feel so good. And then, so yeah, I'm about to take it off again. Not that I'm against tracking. I think it does do that. It gives us a window where it's like, this is some signs that everything's not in balance. But we shouldn't live in such a way that that's what it takes before we realize that, hey, I have too much stress going to bed, and you feel that without anything having to tell you that. But how it affects your sleep, your recovery, your organs, all those things. So I think learning to listen and what you have to offer, which I'm assuming you will do on different levels. You've already been doing it. I don't think any of us that have a healing practice that we're just asking for blessings to be given in, that we haven't already done multiple free consultations in our whole life, that we would have never called it that. But it's just sharing what you're passionate about with people and the space that opens up for you to do that. And so I really just wanted people to hear that. What is this term? What does it mean? And hopefully it gives people, just like you had, a little bit of a taste of like, oh, that kind of sounded like something I want to learn more about. And it may lead them that way. It may lead them another way, but it will lead, which is, I think, the beautiful thing about community is everybody brings something to the table. And I think if we grow in that and we build, then we help people that we don't even know that it's happening, So thank you for being here. We're going to need another one. We're going to need another one.
Done.
I think last time I burned the camera up, so we're going to just let it go. But is there a way that people could learn more about you? Is that ready yet? Because if it isn't, we can hold on until next time. But are you just still in that place where you're finding your way in the next steps, or yoga, or whatever you want to share? This is the moment to give a little blip before we get out of
Well, I appreciate that. And that where I am now, I'm just starting to implement Ayurveda through body work. And so that will actually start
to begin.
It's a year ago I thought I would never be doing body work or massage again, and here we are. I thought I would just be doing like health coaching. I'm like, oh, just health coaching. So right now, when probably in the fall sometime, I'll begin some Ayurvedic body work. And so it's all a system all in itself right there. And hopefully I'll be working with some people in the health coaching a little bit once we get that underway. But that's the feathering out.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to working with women who are interested in shifting into more lifestyle choices for now. And that seems like it's always been there, even in my massage clients. So we'll see how that goes, but
yeah. Wonderful. And so people know that are listening other places that we're both in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And you're in
I'm in Georgia, Hayesville, North Carolina. Like, you know how it goes in this area.
We're in the tri-state corner, yeah.
So neighborhood.
So just so people know, that's something to kind of be on the lookout for, and that's just exciting to know that. And I know you've been in healing work for a long time, so I think it's going to take on a beautiful life of its own.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate you having me here. Like I said, you were such a light to me in my healing, and being able to connect my dots with your dots. You need that community. It's not just, you put on a pair of shoes and that's it. You have to go through your boots and your flip-flops, right, for the different seasons. So I appreciate you having me here and chatting with me and being a part of my healing journey. So.
It's been fun. It was the highlight of my day.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yay, good job. That was
Thank you so much for listening. If this podcast inspired you or encouraged you in some way, please leave us a review or share this episode with a friend. If you need help connecting the dots of your own health journey, I would love to help you with that. You can reach me via the link below to set up a one-on-one consultation. You can also connect with us by joining our free Facebook community, which is linked below, or at healthywithhappyspurling.com. Until next time.